On today's episode, Mike and Ryan go on an international journey for international lagers. Cheers. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Brewthers-In-Law podcast, where beer is thicker than water. Join us on a journey discovering homebrewing, craft beer, and more. My name is Ryan, and with me as always is my brother, Mike. How's it going, Mike?
It is going great. I'm stoked for this episode because it involves snacks.
Anything that involves snacks makes it better. All right. So, as we said in the intro, we're doing international lagers, which they're lagers just around the world. So, for the first sip, Mike, my question to you is, what is your favorite national lager? Your favorite American lager?
American.
We're
giving some love to the homeland.
Yeah, since we're not going to be having any in the actual part of the tasting.
And as we'll get into, a lot of these beers are modeled after American lagers. So this is a very valid first sip, and I applaud you for it.
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
I'm going to say one of my favorites is Founder Solid Gold, but it's different enough where I feel like it has this like craft lager flavor. So if I'm just looking for like a classic, their sign is on the side of a gas station, Bud Miller Coors sort of American lager. I will defend Keystone Light until the day I die. I like Keystone Light legitimately and Miller Light. And if we're talking like non-light American lager, I'm a big fan of Busch and Budweiser. So oddly, my tastes range around, but
I would say, yeah.
I'm really not that picky. They're all just fine.
I do have some. I would say
a few which aren't.
There are a few that I do not like at all.
But yeah,
Keystone being one of them. But I'm not a fan of Miller Lite at all either.
We may just have divergent tastes.
Yeah, because mine is very simple, and it is Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Oh, of course,
it wins.
You hipster.
That's actually one of my favorite stories.
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
We were a while ago, like I was living with my buddy Elvis Ben. When we were living together, we used to drink PBR all the time. It was our cheap beer of choice, a 30-pack for like $20. And then when I started dating Mal, and we were dating for a while, I saw that's when all the hipsters really started going through and started drinking it. And Mal was making fun of me, like, "Oh, you're such a hipster." I said, "I was drinking it before them." And she just looked at me.
You're a meta hipster.
And like, son of a, okay. I walked right into that one.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Yeah, you're like an Inception, like second dream level hipster. You were here before the hipsters were here. I was here before it was cool to be here before it was cool. Okay.
All right. So, quick listener feedback. This is one I actually wanted to bring up to you. Another good friend of ours, Shane Kelly,
friend of the podcast,
and a friend of mine as well. He tagged me and tagged the Brewers and everything on Twitter, saying that his brother sent him this game, and the game is called Brewmaster Beer Brewing Simulator.
Huh.
It is only for PlayStation, which upsets me. And I know it's going to upset you because you don't have a PlayStation at all.
Wow.
But he goes, "I'm not sure if you've seen this game, but you both should buy it when it comes out. Talk about it and maybe get the game developers as a guest." I mean, I don't know if we have that kind of pull.
That would be fun. I take it's probably like an indie game. It
definitely probably is an indie game.
It doesn't feel like it has a huge market potential, so it's probably an indie game.
Well, it
sounds interesting.
Yeah, so it did have like a trailer to it, and I watched the trailer. It is very basic brewing, but it was interesting. Like, you have to make beer and going with what style you're trying to make it to, and like if you do like too much grain or too much hops, like it does affect the beer, and then you have bad beer and you have to sell it to whatever you're going to.
So
as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, and then also like the kind of business simulation, like selling stuff. So almost like I was just playing a game called Moonlighter on the Switch, it's a fun little game. It's basically like I don't know, like Zelda 2D Zelda fighting, but then also you own a shop, so like you go and just like collect stuff from the dungeons, and then you have to sell it to people and like figure out the right prices and supply and demand. So I imagine there's an element of that in there. That sounds fun. I've always wondered that, because like how you would make a brewing game because really isn't just like downloading a brewing app and making recipes kind of like playing a brewing game?
Pretty much, yeah.
You get to watch the color change and like sliders move.
Yep.
You know, are you in your target range?
Yep.
It kind of feels like playing a game. That's a fun comment. Thank you, Shane.
Yeah. Next one I got here is actually from Graph Cap Brewery, which if you guys remember, we interviewed them a while back towards the end of season 1. They said a few months ago we had Brewthers-In-Law come by the brewery and do one of the podcasts. They sat down with Tom, Teresa, and Evan, who are the owners, and then the head brewer, to discuss their love of brewing and all things brewing related. Be sure to head over to their Facebook page and check out all their podcasts and kind of shout out to us and to themselves.
That was nice of them.
Yeah, I that was a great episode. They have some
so
great
cool.
beer.
I would love to make it back up to
I would definitely love to make it back up there. It's a bit of a hike for both of us.
Yeah, well, it would be cool. I know, like at time of recording, pandemic things are getting kind of worse, not better, but it would be nice when we recorded that episode. It was like
felt better. Like
it was like one,
restaurants were allowed to have people in there.
Yeah, restaurants were allowed to have people in, but it was like kind of pre-vaccine. It was like that summer where things were just.
It was right before the vaccine really started to roll out.
In any event, not to dwell on the pandemic, but I would love to go back there in like normal times and just kind of like soak in the vibe, because I really like that place and the owners are super great people.
Yeah. So let's dive into this. International lagers.
International pale lager.
Pale lagers. Sorry, I apologize.
Typo on my part. So there are international amber and dark lagers as well, though of far less fame, I think. So basically, to describe the style, so for me, I think about this style, international pale lager, in two ways. One, this is the beer you probably order with your sushi or your hibachi, with your Mexican food, and possibly also when you go and dine into a Chinese restaurant or an Italian restaurant.
Yep.
If you get like the beer that you get when you go to one of those restaurants, it's probably an international pale lager.
Yes.
It comes from the country of origin of the food you're eating and somehow just seems to go really well with it, right? So we're talking, Sapporo, we're talking, any Mexican lager, Corona if you're a fascist, Sol, Tecate if you want to do Mexican.
That took a hard turn there.
I don't like Corona. I'm sorry. If you like Corona, you're not a fascist. But second, this is the generic beer you drink when you visit other countries.
Yeah.
If you meet a friend in some other country and you're like, get me a beer, this is probably what they're going to bring you. Yeah. So, like Red Stripe is a classic example of that. But often you can also get them in the import section of American stores as well. And in many other markets, you can find these in the import. They're widely exported. And Americans generally seem to consider all of these beers a step up from American lagers. I think there's like this conception that because they come from somewhere else, they're better,
fancy.
They're fancier. Yeah, pinkies out, like just a little bit, a little bit of a cut from a higher cloth than like the Bud Miller Coors of the world. Yes. So, whether that is true or not is obviously like your opinion, man.
Yeah.
So we're not going to comment on that. That's not the focus of this episode, but we are going to try and kind of define this style and what makes it unique from American pale lagers. So. This defined by the BJCP, who is always my reference for sort of official style guidelines.
Yeah.
This is a, and I quote, broad category of international mass market lagers. ABV range is 4.6 to 6%, so kind of medium to light. 18 to 25 IBU, so again, fairly low, but in balance. There you could probably, there are styles that might go even lower than that. And then SRM, which is the sort of measure of color in beer, from 2 to 6. So that's about straw gold. 2 is like barely yellow. So I would say like straw yellow. 6 is kind of like a deeper gold. Not quite red or amber yet, but like
the dude.
But about as deep as gold gets without like turning into orange or amber
or brown.
So so this can also importantly include sort of hoity-toity craft American lagers. But it most typically refers to the typical import, or people will call a lot of these like green bottle international beers. So you can imagine like
Green
Heineken, Stella, you know, a lot of them kind of famously use green for reasons. I don't know, marketing probably. Found in, but yeah, so again, these are found in America and many export markets. About the green bottles.
Yeah.
BJCP specifically calls out any skunkiness, which is famously a quality of green or clear bottled beer sometimes because they get light struck from exposure to the sun. So they call out any skunkiness in commercial beers from being light struck in a green bottle is a mishandling fault, not a characteristic of the style. So that doesn't that doesn't necessarily mean that the brewery mishandled it. It could have been during shipping. It was exposed to the sun or whatever, but that is considered a mishandling fault, not a characteristic of the style.
See, I remember you telling me a story. I don't know. I think it was Heineken or Stella. I think it was Heineken. Like intentionally does it when they ship it to here in the U.S. because we like it that way.
Yeah. So let's
quotes. We can't see my finger quotes, but quotes. We like it that way.
That's I believe that is true, and let's return to it because we'll be tasting Heineken later.
Yeah, Heineken is on the list.
But yeah, so the overall impression of this is a highly attenuated pale lager without strong flavors, typically well balanced, highly carbonated, refreshing, and thirst quenching. And again, it's listed somewhere else. Strong flavors are a fault.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a bad thing. It's really not, though. Like if you are going to one of these light lagers, you want something that doesn't get in the way, that it's crisp, thirst quenching, and just refreshing, and probably pairs well with your food.
And it's a perfect thing to sit on the pool, by the beach, or whatever.
Yeah, or pool or beach. Yes. Yeah. So food, pool, or beach are like great sort of examples of when these beers are applicable, at least through the American lens. So as a result of wanting to reduce flavor and make them as thirst quenching as dry as possible, a crisp, dry finish, many of these will include adjuncts. So corn, sugar,
I was about to say,
rice, and that is not considered. Weirdly, like the Japanese rice lager kind of form of this international pale lager has sort of taken on a craft beer following. And people will complain about adjuncts in American beer. No one seems to complain about a rice lager because it's a style,
I need to go to Japan then and make all my beers. Right. They won't make fun of me over there.
Yeah, but a lot of people will sort of hate on buttermilk or whatever for adding corn syrup or rice and whatever. Again, your opinion, and if you find those beers to be watery and you think that's the problem, great, sure, but
drink something else.
it is a part of many of these styles.
Yeah.
I would just say maybe if you don't like those beers, you may not love. They're ready.
Okay.
You may not love these beers either, but the style guidelines do call out that adjuncts are less used in this style than they are in American lager traditionally. So there's less use of adjuncts, though many kind of country substyles will use them. So we are going, I'm sorry. One more, I'm just going to list the examples just so we can get an idea. These are the BJCP examples. Asahi Super Dry, which is from Japan, Birra Moretti from Italy, Corona Extra from Mexico, Heineken from the Netherlands, Red Stripe from Jamaica, Singha, I think, Singha, which is an Indian beer.
Okay.
And then we have two American craft versions, Devil's Backbone Gold Leaf Lager and Full Sail Session Premium Lager.
Interesting. I've never heard of those two.
I have not. I've heard of Devil's Backbone. They make a really famous Schwartz beer, and I think they're kind of like famously good lager brewers. So I'd love to try theirs. But so then, again, quickly, you'll notice this category excludes American lager, but also Czech Pilsner, German Pils, German Helles. It excludes any non-pale lager. So this is not Negra Modelo. This is not Dos Equis.
Yep. Now it would be Modelo Especial.
Modelo Especial would
and the green Dos Equis, their lager as
correct.
well.
Those would both be international pale lagers. Yeah. So to me, this category basically encompasses traditions of pale lager from countries that don't have their own specific category, right? So the BJCP has a category for German Pils because that is a very famous style. It's a world style that's like big enough and has enough examples that it's its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
All of the others all these countries have their own traditions and they all just get kind of melting potted together into this style because there just isn't enough to distinguish them or there aren't enough examples according to the BJCP to make it its own thing.
Yeah.
They doesn't have a big enough cultural footprint. So
they'll get there.
Yeah. And again, then this also includes American craft beer made in these traditions. You'll see craft breweries say this is a Mexican lager or this is a Japanese rice style lager.
I was say Griffin Claw does one, a rice lager. It's really good.
Oh yeah, Madame.
Yeah.
It's an incredible. Yeah, it's so yummy. They also do a Mexican lager.
They do.
Yes. So yeah, what makes these similar? What makes them different? We're here to find out.
Let's find out.
But
first one on the list, if memory serves me right.
Yes, memory does serve you right. So
I did good.
Yeah, so the first beer we're going to be trying is Tecate Original. Oh, original. Tecate Original. I'm going to just say it like a white boy from Mexico. This is 4.5 ABV, 13.5 IBU.
I can't pour beer.
We are, for the record, going to be sampling 8 of these. So we're taking 3-ounce pours, guys. Don't worry, we're being responsible.
We have to drive later.
But there are so many. They are all pretty much going to have the same description of color. We'll describe any differences. Otherwise, assume that they are pale gold, and crystal clear and carbonated with a foam that doesn't really last. No. That's kind of how these all look. So let's take a sip.
Cheers.
Cheers. Salud. And that's
so crisp. I'm back on the beach again.
So
I miss it already.
This first one for a lager, I find this one to be a little on the sweeter side compared to like what I would get out of, say, a Miller Lite.
I can agree with that, actually. I definitely agree with that. We have our chips and salsa to go with this.
I forgot to mention that, but because these first 4 all pair with like kind of famous sort of food types that are found in America, we've made snacks.
Yes.
So
make sure again we don't get too intoxicated.
Yeah, we have some chips and salsa, so sorry about the crunch, but we're trying to replicate the experience of having this at a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah. So I will say, like, Tecate is a great beer. It's one of my favorite Mexican beers. I would probably say 2 on my list. 2 or 3
behind
Bohemia and Pacifico. Probably be Pacifico and Tecate can probably switch back and forth depending on the day.
Now, do you find that kind of? I don't know if you would describe it as sweet. It's not overly sweet.
No, it's just like crisp sweet.
As lagers go, I would put this on the sweeter end, using like an American lager as a reference, which is funny because those are not very highly hopped. But this one at 13.5 IBU is on the low end for this style.
Yeah, definitely low
So
end.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you find this to be fairly similar in quality? Would you describe those other Mexican beers that way as well?
Yeah. Bohemia might be have a little more flavor because it's not a lager in any way, shape, or form, or pale lager. I think it's more of an ale or closer to an ale.
Oh, really?
Kind of like it's like that middle ground between Modelo Negra and.
Or not an ale, you mean it's a little darker.
Yeah, a little darker. It's got a little more of a maltiness to it compared to this or a Corona or Pacifico, Landshark, those type of beers. So
in the same ballpark, but maybe one of the reasons you like that is it's kind of on the edge of its sort of country style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I will say, if you think about Mexican food, there aren't the flavors don't tend to be that sweet. They're often spicy, and I don't know how whatever crunchy, chewy, cheesy, melty.
Yep.
I know Taco Bell is not Mexican food. Please don't correct me, but I think that's part of why they make these beers this way is because that little bit of sweetness isn't in the food, and so it complements it really nicely. And I think it probably helps if you're eating spicy food. It helps with just sort of to cool that off.
I can agree with that.
That's kind of how I would think about it.
I can definitely agree with that.
Just sort of why they just pair so uniquely well with Mexican food. So the next one we're going to be trying is Asahi Super Dry from Japan. This is a Japanese rice lager. I was stoked to find this because I had never seen it before. And then all of a sudden, the Olympics started. And there are like Asahi commercials all over the Olympics because they're in Tokyo. And then now I've seen it at like 4 or 5 beer stores. So I feel like they're just making a big marketing push this year or something. But I normally don't see Asahi. Typically, I would think Sapporo and Kirin Ichiban are the two.
Or Tiger. Tiger's Japanese, right?
I don't know. I've never had it.
I've seen it. I don't think I've had it either.
Okay, yeah. So I would say that like Sapporo and Kirin Ichiban are the ones I most often find at like restaurants around here. Yeah. And we have some sushi to pair with this because again, these are the sort of beers, these rice lagers. This is like classic something you would eat at a hibachi grill or like a Japanese sushi restaurant.
Yeah, we're gonna eat our sushi with our fingers like heathens,
like savages.
It's so good though.
Mm-hmm. And here we go. Same color description.
Mm-hmm. It's very crisp. I love it. I think that's the right.
It is ridiculously dry. Like I bought one of these beers. I bought the 6-pack to have with my brother. I saved one for this episode, but without food, it's like almost too dry. It's like it's so dry. It has that wonderful sense that as soon as you sip it, you're left wanting another sip. But it's almost like it leaves you thirsty. Almost like it's
like a dry wine almost. Like it just makes you more thirsty for it.
Yeah. And so that's good, but dear Lord, this beer goes quickly because you just want more.
Mine's gone already.
Immediately.
I mean, it's only 3 ounces, but mine's gone already.
And that is definitely a style that is like sort of famously true of Japanese rice lager. If you, in the kind of the way that Americans have internalized the Japanese rice lager thing, I've had a couple at American craft breweries. Mm-hmm. And they are always like actually paler than this is. They're super pale. Mm-hmm. They use a ton of rice to just dry the beer out like crazy. I think you could achieve something similar with just like sugar probably too.
Probably, yeah.
But they end up with a super low final gravity and just about as dry as it gets and then highly carbonated. I know you're a big fan of sushi. Why do you think it's just that that's what Japanese palates like, or do you think that the dryness complements the Japanese food cuisine in some way?
I would say it complements. I mean, because we just have some kind of basic California rolls, but like when Mao and I go out to get sushi, like we get like the dragon roll with eel on it and a lot of big flavors, and like of course with wasabi and ginger, like those are some very big flavors as well.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
So I think it's nice to. I mean, you can use that as a palate cleanser for sure. I mean, that's just going to dry out everything. It does
make a nice palate cleanser.
So if you are eating like a dragon roll with some eel sauce on there, and then you're going to switch to like a spicy tuna roll, which are very different flavors, a nice palate cleanser, and then you can enjoy the next one, and then cleanse again, move back to another one. I think in my opinion, that would be the reason why to have that.
Yeah, you're right. That does make sense. See, like, eating this, we're doing like real bare bones. I bought this from a grocery store. It's just
we do like real sushi. Like we go to sushi places.
This particular one is just a pre-made California roll. We're not even putting soy sauce or wasabi on it, so it's like still yummy, but pretty basic and kind of dry. It tricked me into thinking that that's how the eating experience is, and you're right. That's like just totally false. Mm-hmm. Normally, you have sauce. You have these really big because soy sauce is a super poppy flavor. Yep. And so it does make a lot of sense to have something just dry, crisp, and like ultimately palate cleansing.
Yes.
I do think though, and I guess this is also often served with food, but sake is also pretty dry most of the time.
Oh, yeah, usually it is. Even you get the fruited ones, they're pretty dry.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was also just a kind of a preference of the Japanese culture that like the people there just like dry, crisp sorts of drinks. I don't know if we have any Japanese listeners that could confirm or deny that, but that would be my take on it. Yeah. So next up, being served with some We went like kind of lo-fi because these are just snacks. But hard salami wrapped in mozzarella. We have Peroni Nastro Azzurro from Italy.
This is my first time ever having
Fun
this,
fact,
actually.
Ryan, do you know what Nastro Azzurro means?
I do not.
Blue ribbon. So you're going to love this one.
I'm going to love it.
It's won the same ribbon that your favorite American lager won.
If it doesn't taste the same, I'm going to call
Pabst,
BS on it.
Pabst Blue Ribbon, Peroni Blue Ribbon. So this is, I'm sorry. So Asahi was 5.5%, 20 IBU.
Oh, yeah.
So higher than Tecate.
Yeah.
Which I think, again, feeds into the dry finish. Hoppier, drier, typically. Although too hoppy, then that lingers. But anyway, whatever. So Peroni is very similar. 24 IBU, 5.1 ABV.
These things are so good.
Again, I would describe the color
super
and
pale. That's little.
I would say it's pretty much identical. I think all three of these.
It's a little golder, I feel, but not like
think?
a darker gold, but like a vibrant gold more than it.
Now, I don't know a whole lot about how Italian beers are made. I wouldn't be surprised. This is a bit more flavorful for me. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this isn't made with adjuncts because it's not quite as dry, and it has a bit more malt flavor. I maybe get just like the teensiest bit of like a skunky thing, but
it's a green bottle. That's first green bottle.
And it has a green bottle. Yeah. So yeah, Mexican beers so in Mexican beer you can have ones like Sol or Land Shark that are clear bottle
as well.
And Corona, and typically you won't see green bottles though. Peroni is green bottled. Oh, sorry, and then like Japanese beer also typically always brown
bottles. Yeah.
Peroni's the first one we've had that isn't a green bottle. I don't know, but when I think of Peroni, I think a light touch of that is kind of something I associate with the flavor, but it's super light, and I don't mind it. I almost consider it kind of part of the Peroni experience, but I don't know. I might also just think that because I know it comes in a green bottle, and I associate green bottles with skunky.
Yeah. No,
now that I'm trying to look for it, I don't actually taste it.
No, I don't. I know. I think that is probably
a bold-faced lie.
Well, no, we can go that way. But I was gonna say it's probably my favorite so far. To tell you the truth.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Tecate is super, 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 super refreshing. That's pool beer.
This
that's
isn't
beach
quite
beer.
a beach beer, but it is a fantastic food beer.
Yeah. This
and
beer,
just a good beer.
This beer is you're like in Italy on the boardwalk, sitting on a little cafe outside, and it's a hot day, and you're sipping this beer. That's it. It's not by the pool. It's not like you need to be by the water with it, but like it's a beautiful day in Italy.
You're outside, You're outside having that, and then we went to Italy a few years ago, and they really do there's kind of an intentionally slow dining experience there. Where it's like you order drinks, and then you just nurse those drinks for a while. Maybe you order an app. You nurse the app for a while. You can have like a beer and then a glass of wine with dinner. And then if you're me, you definitely want some grappa after dinner as a digestive. So, but yeah, it's like this kind of elongated, like you're meant to just exactly what you described. Just like kind of sit and bask in the environment and just kind of like just chill and take your time.
But still hot
and
day,
just
sunny
enjoy
day.
enjoy the meal. That at least, granted, we had very few that were like truly outside of tourist areas. But that was the kind of the consistent experience. Was it was like you were meant to just take your time. You weren't like, "Where's our food?
Yeah,
we've got places to be." You're just, and you're right. This is a good beer for that.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, last one of the food beers we have Lucky Buddha beer from China. This clocks in more similar to Tecate, 4.8% ABV, 12 IBU.
And I love the bottle. It is green.
It's a green bottle that is custom cut to have this little happy Buddha man on the front. It is a really fun, and you have one of these that's used as like a toothbrush holder in your bathroom.
Yes.
Right?
Well, we tried to get a pair of glasses because we had 2 bottles of them. Our father-in-law tried to cut it and set it up so we can do it,
and succeeded.
He did with one. The second one broke on him, so he wasn't. That's why we only got the one.
So this is one. I've only ever had one of these, and it was skunked. It tasted like pot. I've never actually eaten pot. but like it just like the smell was so in your nose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is not skunk. You'll be good.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. See, this is so different from my memory of it. I thought, like, I was like, oh, like this. They must make this beer kind of like weedy on purpose, just because of like the Buddha thing. I didn't know. I didn't realize it was like an import from China. I thought it was just some cheeky thing that someone in Colorado made or something. This is totally different, and I really like this beer.
Yeah,
it's lighter than Peroni. I would say
it's easier to drink than Peroni. I think it's a nice mix between the Asahi and the Peroni. I think it's a nice balance between the two. Like it isn't as palate cleansing.
Yeah,
but it's still it's got less flavor to it, but it's like a nice mix of the two.
But very slightly less. And this one is a bit more golden. So I wonder again if this one maybe is just made with all malt. I don't know. Again, I know a bit more about. I know that Mexican lagers a lot of times we use corn as an adjunct.
Yeah.
Japanese lagers famously will use rice as an adjunct.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a lot about the brewing in Italy and China. But this does it's a bit more flavor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, still ultimately very crisp and dry, and something that I am about to enjoy with the egg roll. But we almost forgot about these. But also it's still light enough to definitely enjoy with some food.
Yes. Very good. Oh, you're pretty good.
These are good.
Not bad for freezer.
Chang's brand vegetable egg rolls.
Yep. Yeah. These are
very good.
I think it's perfect. Like, because with Chinese food, like again, you got a lot of flavors with it. You got spices, you got sweet, you got a lot of different things. And I think with Lucky Buddha is a nice balance of a cleansing and flavor and everything. So like you can have whatever you're having for food and still have a beer to go with it no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's been a while since I have had one. But this does match up very well to my memory of what I'm gonna murder the pronunciation, but what Tsingtao tastes like. Have you ever had Tsingtao?
Yeah, I've had Tsingtao.
That's like the one that's more common that I will see if we like ever dine in at a Chinese restaurant that serves alcohol, which is kind of like rare. But there's one near my house.
Oh, nice!
With like an adorable little bar with Christmas lights up like all year.
Of course, yeah.
No, it's so cute. But yeah, this matches my memory of Tsingtao. No, I don't really know. Again, I feel like I know how I might go about, and we'll return to this later, how I would make a Mexican lager or a Japanese rice lager if I wanted to try. Because there's a characteristic adjunct that you can add to sort of get that. I don't know. Like, I can taste the difference between Peroni and Lucky Buddha. I don't know that I can put my finger on it enough to like write two different recipes where one tastes like one and the other tastes like the other.
Which I think is why the guidelines kind of put them all together, because these four beers so far, we're about halfway through, and we have slightly different flavors, but overall crisp, refreshing, light in color, light in hops. Like they match, but they're really still slightly different.
Again, there aren't strong flavors. You're not like, oh, they definitely used this hop. Like again, returning to Founders Solid Gold, amazing beer. God, I love it so much. They use a very fruity hop called Lemon Drop, and you definitely can tell. Like it's in there. It's in the balance. That's one of the things that I love about this beer. It's still super crisp, but there is this distinctive flavor.
Yeah.
And most of these sort of lack that, where it's hard. Like there's no, aside from the fact that Asahi's so super dry.
Yes.
There's no like, oh my God, they definitely used this really distinctive ingredient or whatever. Like, yeah, that's been absent from these. So
no, agreed. I think that's what makes these beers really good. Is that no matter what, like you can kind of describe where you would drink it, like we were talking about Peroni, kind of like on a hot
and that's obviously very informed.
Beach.
Yeah, but that's very informed by the places we have drank these.
Well,
beers,
true,
because you often see them where they feel right at restaurants or whatever in America.
But at the same time, like I could so far at these four beers, maybe not the side because it's a little too dry. But all these beers, I could take on the beach no matter what.
Which is, no, I could too. And again, with the Asahi, like with food, It's my favorite of the four, definitely.
With
I
food,
love
yes, because of what it
Japanese
does.
rice lager, but yeah, it is. It's almost weird drinking it without because it's almost so tailored to like being paired with cuisine.
All right, so I think we're at the halfway point. We're done with the food ones.
Halfway point.
So let's take a quick break. Let's reset and get some more food in our stomach too. While we take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll continue. We got 4 more, correct, or 5?
We have 4 more. We're
4 more?
halfway.
Okay, perfect. So we'll be back. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to our new podcast. Welcome to our new podcast.
This isn't working.
Agreed. I think we're going to have to do it turn by turn.
Well, now that you mention it, we are a brand new RPG video game podcast.
Our very existence hinges on turn-based gaming.
So join us on the Turn by Turn podcast, where we'll be talking about
Pokemon, Fire Emblem, Golden Sun, Shining Force, Mother, and so many more.
It's your turn to come and join us.
Hey, this is TC.
And this is Jim from the Studio Demands It podcast,
Where every episode we take a demand from a hypothetical studio,
which could be you,
and challenge ourselves to conceptualize, pitch, and craft a film based on the stipulations
or the demands
we are given. We talk about movies all the time. Particularly, we complain about the choices made in the films we've seen.
We're nerds like that.
And, of course, like any good nerd does, we automatically assume that we could do better.
Even with the demands and restrictions that clearly must have been put on by a production.
So head on over to studiodemandsit.com and listen to our previous library of episodes. Our library of previous episodes. Our precious library, Jim. Our library of precious episodes.
You're a pirate, Smeagol.
Okay, so head on over to studiodemandsit.com to listen to our library of episodes.
And submit your demand for a future episode, too.
So go do that.
Okay, bye.
Okay, end of ad.
And we are back. So in part 1, we were pretty faithfully sticking with the sorts of beers you might eat, or you might drink with food. Drink with food.
How many have you had?
In a restaurant in America where you're eating food from somewhere else. But International Pale Lager isn't just food beer. They encompass most favorite import beer, and in many other countries, again, this beer would serve as kind of the generic beer, the Bud Miller Coors that you see advertised on the side of gas stations, bars, convenience stores. It is sort of the, again, just like kind of the kind of generic swill of that country.
Yep.
This is particularly true in a lot of beach vacation destination sort of countries. It's also true in many countries in Europe. So in the second half, we are going to be slowing down our snacking because I'm getting full. And we're going to just be looking at kind of world beers, some international pale lagers from some different other countries that aren't specifically associated with food that Ryan and I like eating. So we are going to start in the Netherlands with the famous world-known Heineken. So Heineken lager beer, 5.0% alcohol, 23 IBU. So again, right in that kind of 20-ish IBU, 5-ish percent is kind of the median here. This one, I would say, on first pour, it's actually the palest yet. This is almost like going on straw.
Yep.
And there is that skunk. Oh, boy.
I will say, when I was younger in my beer drinking days, I was always told Heineken Corona were the 2 beers you should drink because they're cool for when you first start drinking. And I said nay.
They were like...
after tasting them, I said nay.
They were a step cooler than... And, I will say it doesn't bother me as much as I remember it, but I wonder if it's because we were drinking out of a can.
They didn't have bottles. Well, they had the bottles, but it was the 0. And I didn't...
Yeah, it's definitely... And for just a quick description, so the skunky thing, it's a character called being light struck. And I'm not going to get into it too much, but cross this one off the bingo card. There, I think, is a recent Brewlosophy episode about this. No. I'm sorry. It's the Brew Lab, which is made by the same people.
Brewlosophy, can you please sponsor us?
No, they can't. They're also a podcast. They need their own.
They're
sponsor.
bigger. They can sponsor us.
But
They
yeah,
be like the big brother.
there's this whole kind of very scientific podcast episode on the Brew Lab about light struck character and how apparently like copper can be used to reverse it, which is pretty neat. It was
Interesting.
super interesting. But anyway, it is a chemical reaction that happens due to just, compounds in the beer absorbing sunlight. And those are fairly effectively blocked by brown bottles, not by green bottles. That's where that whole thing comes from. The idea that skunky beer, like it is that compound is like, right. I can't give a full description. Just listen to that podcast episode, but it is sort of somehow along the lines of kind of what you smell when you smell a skunk or when you smell like pot. I think it's the same sort of, it's a sulfur compound. That's it.
Okay.
It's a sulfur compound that is along the lines of like skunk smell and pot smell, which is why we have these associations. So,
yeah, I'm still not a huge fan of it. It definitely has its skunkiness to it.
I don't love it. Yeah, it's basically a lager with that skunky flavor in there. So again, funny story. We were just talking about this earlier. They apparently, when you have this in the Netherlands, it does not taste like this. And they had considered just sort of changing their packaging so that this wouldn't happen in America. So they taste tested their beer among American drinkers. And the American drinkers preferred Heineken with the skunky flavor, presumably just because it's what they had grown to expect it to taste like. Yeah, like when they knew they were drinking a Heineken, it didn't taste like Heineken if you took that flavor out of there.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Just like that we can become conditioned. And I talked about that with Peroni, right? Where it was like, I think a teensy bit of that I associate with Peroni. This one apparently had been handled better, didn't really have that. It threw me a little bit. I liked it better, but it's weird kind of how you can, it's almost like Stockholm syndrome. You just so now we could be drinking better Heineken, but we turned it away. We had the chance.
How dare us?
Yeah, now it makes me super curious what like. Maybe it's really yummy in the Netherlands.
I would like to.
We'll have to go there and find out. But yeah,
we'll do an episode.
Hard to glean much off of this aside from that. It can't tell us a whole lot about Dutch beer on the whole, sadly. But that's Heineken.
Yeah, it's Heineken. So the next one, which I will open, and then you can say the right proper phrase from the commercial.
Red Stripe.
Hooray, beer!
Hooray, beer. I was going to say the beer in the short, ugly bottle, but this is actually in a tall 16-ounce can. Slightly disappointing, but so Red Stripe is from Jamaica, 4.7 ABV, 23 IBU, again, right in our kind of bread basket. They had one of my favorite advertising campaigns for a while when it was the beer in the short, ugly bottle. And I apologize for my terrible Jamaican accent, but there's the one where just like their kind of spokesman walked up to some dude and was just like, do you think you are beautiful? And the guy was like, yes. And he went, no, you are very ugly. And that was the whole commercial. And then it's just Red Stripe, the beer in the short, ugly bottle.
They had a great advertising campaign.
It was really good. Now, it's funny. I get something on the nose with this beer that I haven't gotten. I think it's a little bit more hopped, maybe.
I think it is, actually.
It definitely is, yeah. God, this is delicious. I haven't had Red Stripe in a long time.
I know, it's been a long time since
it's only 23 IBU. So it's right in the bread basket, but they may have, I think they added more late hops than a lot of these others.
Maybe, yeah.
Because it's just kind of that mild, noble hop, vaguely hoppy character, but I definitely get more of it. And God, I really like this.
Yeah, that's really good.
I forgot that this was a good beer. I haven't had it in years.
See, I was always told it was bad. I was always told. Everyone always said, no, Red Stripe is bad. It does not taste good. Do not even bother with it. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to bother with it. And now I think this is actually my first time really trying it. Were those the same
people telling you to drink Corona and Heineken?
I think they were, actually.
You should have known. Should have known then. Yeah, I like
this is really good. It's really crisp.
So this is another one, and this is a slight spoiler for later, but I looked up some clone recipes. The clone recipe, at least for Red Stripe, contains some flaked rice. It tastes like it has adjunct in it because it's a bit lighter, a bit crisper, and a bit less flavorful than some of the kind of the Peroni, the Buddha beer examples. It's a bit more towards, and again, this is kind of a beach beer. It's from Jamaica.
I was gonna say, it's very, very similar to Tecate.
So I could see it sort of being along the lines of it's again hoppier than the Mexican lager, definitely. Probably the hoppiest beer yet, but it has that a similar amount of lightness and crispness to Tecate, I'd probably say.
No, I can agree. I think it's another great pool beach beer.
Yeah.
Very light,
Really
very
is, yeah.
refreshing.
I'm glad I have the rest of I should have got the 6-pack, dang it. So the next one, we're gonna continue riding the kind of beach beer train for one more. This is Imperial from Costa Rica. I have never had this. Ryan, you found this. Have you ever had it before?
Before buying this, no, but I've had a couple
Since? Okay.
since.
So this is 4.6 ABV, 19 IBU. It has this almost like Polish eagle looking, like the Polish flag eagle on it.
Yeah.
Which is a bit weird, and actually, well, we can get to kind of notable countries we missed after the end of this. Let's review this one. So first of all, what made you pick this beer?
It was Costa Rica. I never really seen a beer from Costa Rica. So I saw it when I was looking through a couple of the international lagers, and I was like, I know I had Tecate already, and I was like, you know what? I gotta try it still. I thought it would be different enough from it. And I think it is.
There's something right on the front, like as soon as it hits my tongue, that is different from any other beers we've had so far, and I don't know what it is.
It's almost a mix of Tecate and the Asahi. Like you get almost like a super dryness, but it doesn't quite reach that peak of dryness. But you still get a refreshing.
You're right, actually. It almost, and it's a pretty pale beer, so this surprises me. But it almost tastes like it has a little bit more like darker malt flavor, not like really dark, but like a Vienna or a Munich, just a little bit more of that. But then they still dried it out quite a bit, somehow or other. And yeah, it makes for a really interesting. This is yummy. I like this. I would definitely drink this on the beach anywhere, not just Costa Rica. Or by a pool.
Oh, this when I bought my different beers for this, which I think this was my last one of them. This was probably my favorite of all of them. Yeah. Like Peroni, I think this and Peroni are probably my 1 and 2. I couldn't say which one's 1 and 2, but like they're definitely right there.
Yeah. For me, these are, like I said, I don't love Heineken. I actually liked it a lot better than I remember. If someone handed me a Heineken, I wouldn't be a snob about it. I would drink it. It's fine. It's not that bad.
Nope.
But the rest of them, I've really liked all of them. I've really liked them all a lot. So we only have one left. This one is near and dear to my heart. It's called Mythos, and it is a Greek beer. I was able to take a trip to Greece in college, and this was sort of a lot of my description of what I consider these beers to be, that you see them on the side of gas stations and stuff, comes from that trip, because this was like the only beer, it was on the side of there were these little like convenience stores that they're these super, super tiny shops that you could walk into and buy some, just like little knickknacks or, snacks, whatever you needed. Yeah, it has a very weird kind of like tab pull-off top. It's in a green bottle. And
that was the weirdest thing in the world, because I thought I was opening it and it was pulling off the metal, but not the actual plastic. It was weird.
I could actually see the kind of like adhesive pulling off. That one kind of seemed to get stuck. Yeah, there's this weird kind of like tab mechanism for opening the bottle cap. I've never seen one like this before. It's almost like you're opening a can, but then, or like you're opening like a can,
like an old tab can, or like an old beer can. Though you had like the.
Oh, see, I didn't know that was an old thing. I've just never seen it before.
Well, this was usually on cans, where you had like kind of like how you have bottle opens now or can opens now, where you pull that tab, you'll get the one thing that pulls out with it.
Yeah, but so Mythos is 5%. Oh, actually here, the internet was a lie. Their bottle says 4.7.
Oh.
Now we can't trust the IBU, which is 17, but I don't know if that's true. Yeah, so Mythos, it says premium quality Hellenic beer. Hellenic meaning Greek, but just in Greek.
Yeah.
And their advertising says the taste of Greek summer. That is exactly like what I remember was just drinking it outside at restaurants in Greece and just really liking it. And that is my experience drinking this again.
This is, I would probably say, a mix of the Peroni and the Tecate, where like it's not quite a beach beer, but like where you expect a beach to be, but like in Greece, I know they got the beaches there and everything, but this is a Greece beach beer is what I would describe it as.
Yeah.
A Mediterranean beach beer.
Yeah. So like slightly cooler than like the Costa Rican beach. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that being true. It also, I think Peroni is an interesting description because granted, we're heavily imprinting our ideas about these countries onto what we taste, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I can imagine also, again, like I imagine kind of like you said with Peroni, just sitting out at like a cafe drinking this. I don't need to be out on the water.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and again, we're sort of running out of like new terms because these are like, they're all unique. They're also all very similar.
Yeah.
You know, and this one, yeah, I
they
think
have
you're right.
personalities of each other.
It's hard at this point to describe it any other way as like just sort of a like triangulation of some of these other beers. It falls right in that breadbasket. It's very refreshing. This is one that I actually had one on Thursday night with my neighbor, and it's a great beer to just sit and drink. It does not require food.
No, agreed.
But it's good with food, I can tell you.
No, I could see, like I said when I was saying the mix of Peroni and the Tecate, like you are like you have the water all around you, obviously in Greece. So like I could see you walking down the boardwalk with the water near you, and you really, can still sip it on this as like it's a hot day.
Most of the time we were there, we were not actually on the coast. So
well, apparently you weren't doing Greece right. I don't know. I've never been there.
There are ruins to see, Ryan. Do you want to have a beach day or do you want to see Olympia?
I mean, no. I would want to see Olympia.
Or like the Temple of Apollo.
Yep.
Yeah. That was what, yeah. So in any event, I love this beer. It still tastes nostalgic.
No, it's very good. I like this beer.
So many years later. It's good. I actually do get a teensy bit of skunky from it, but that makes sense because it came from a long way and from a country that probably doesn't export a lot of beer.
Very well, yeah.
So I can see it, but it's just detectable. Again, it's not their fault.
Mm-hmm.
In Greece, it didn't have that, but importing it here, that's like part of the risk you take when you do the green bottle. Mm-hmm. The green bottle is a cool marketing trick to say this is an import.
Yeah,
but it also, you run that risk if in a warehouse or something, you know, on a pallet, it gets left outside or whatever, just due to the way that it travels.
This risk you take.
That can happen. Yeah. So
let's bring this around to home brewery, shall we?
Yes, let's. Okay. So I looked up, well, actually, let's start with no reading list here. If you were to try and clone one of these beers, Ryan, one, what would your approach be? Kind of what would you be aiming for? You know, what kind of ingredients would you use? Would you use an adjunct? How much? And then just mostly, if you were like, would you sort of aim to have it taste specifically like one of these countries' traditions? Or do you think you would just kind of try and make something that was in the general ballpark of this?
I would love to clone Peroni.
Okay, wow. So you really liked
I did like Peroni,
yeah.
But because it's me, I'm going to do this. I think that, and this is going to play off because Bud Light, we obviously have Bud Light around here.
Turns out that we do.
We do. They went on a crusade of lime, orange, and all these other flavors of their beers and everything. And a lot of breweries are doing that now. A lot of stouts mostly because you can do the chocolate, the fruits, and everything else with it as well.
Not just them. You're right. No, that in American light lager, there's a whole. I had some kind of weird prickly pear Michelob at Roger and Sherry's a couple weekends ago, and I hated how much I liked it.
Yeah, I would probably do something similar to that with different fruits.
Okay,
that I think would bring out flavors.
So
like
start with this base and then just kind of double down on
grapefruit. I think would be really good. A lemon actually over a lime I think would be better.
Lime is a weird thing to add to beer for me. I don't usually like it.
No, I'm with you on that. So I think using that as a base and kind of bringing in other flavors, I think would be what I would go with.
Of course you would.
Of course I
but
would,
also I'm excited to try that. It does sound good. So I am a sucker for Japanese style like rice, like Japanese style rice lager.
Yeah.
They're so good, man. Like I just to quote my brother, we were at Griffin Claw in Birmingham, Michigan, and we ordered their Japanese rice lager. It's called Madame. Madam. Or
Madame. I would say Madame. It's fancy.
Should we pronounce it like like in the Japanese language? I don't know how that would even be, but I'm not going to try at the risk of offending anybody. But it like he took a sip and went, "Oh, I could have 60 of those."
and that's what I think is
just exactly it. And Asahi, I said is almost like too dry. That is the extreme. It's literally called Asahi Super Dry. They use a special yeast that just dries the snot out of the beer. Most of the Japanese rice lagers that I've mostly had are like Kirin Ichiban, which is my personal favorite actually, and Sapporo. And they're along the same lines, just not quite so far.
Yeah.
They use a lot of rice. They really dry it out. They're pale. And then they use a lot of them. Sapporo famously uses, this... I cannot remember it, and there's a fruit fly buzzing in front of me. But they use this particular. I'm gonna have to look it up. This like Japanese hop.
So so what you're saying is, if you were to make, you would pick the Asahi, and would you make it drier or would you make it less dry?
I would make it less dry
Okay.
than that.
Okay.
Man, this is really killing me. It's so dumb. But there's a very specific hop that Sapporo uses. You can look it up, but it has this almost like kind of like lemon, but also kind of like a dill sort of flavor. It's hard to explain, but Kickstand makes Sriracha Ace. That's the one.
Okay.
Sriracha Ace hops, yeah. Because Kickstand makes a blonde ale with a bunch of Sriracha Ace, and it is just it's like my favorite blonde ale. It's an amazing beer, and it's a really good hop. And so I would use that. I would probably hop it more like what was the one that was hopped a little more? I think it was the Red Stripe, actually.
I think it was the Red Stripe, yeah.
Yeah, I would hop it more like that. I'd dry the snot out of it with rice, but something more along the lines of a Sapporo or a Kirin Ichiban. I think Asahi's a bit too far for me because I don't want to have to eat Japanese food every time I have one.
Yeah.
I'm going to make 5 gallons.
Yeah.
So just to briefly review a couple of clone recipes I looked up. So on this is the Atlantico Mexican Lager from Northern Brewer. The malt bill is Pilsner malt, 2 pounds each, Vienna, and flaked corn.
Okay.
So again, 2 pounds of Vienna for character, 2 pounds of flaked corn as an adjunct. Mm-hmm. Adventures in Home Brewing's Red Stripe clone uses pale 2-row malt with 1.5 pounds of flaked rice.
Okay.
And then 0.5 pound of 6-row, which interestingly, 6-row malt is what like most American breweries use. That's another difference we didn't discuss is American breweries famously will use 6-row malt instead of 2 because it's cheaper. But it also apparently has this kind of grainy quality. So they get a little bit there. They get a little bit, 1/4 pound of Carahel, which I think is also like kind of like Carapils. It's like body and foam retention. Clawhammer Brewing's Sapporo clone, 4 pounds of white rice with 5 pounds of Pilsner malt. So you would have to cereal mash the rice. They use actual white rice, but it is 9 pounds of grain, and 4 of those are rice. Yeah. So like they really double down.
No
but
kidding,
interestingly,
Sapporo's not that super dry, not compared to that one.
Yeah, I don't know. But again, Asahi uses some kind of proprietary yeast that like eats up tons of sugar and results in a super low final gravity. Gotcha. They said one of the tastiest homebrews we've ever made. Interestingly, you may know that I'm a Brewlosophy listener.
No.
They did a Short and Shoddy episode. That's their like style series on International Pale Lager. He made an International Pale Lager kind of styled after a Japanese one, but he used just sugar to dry it out.
Okay.
And he also said that some of his, like the people that drank it said it was one of the best beers he had ever made. So I feel like there's just something about Japanese rice lager that just rocks.
Oh yeah.
And then, so basically, simple grain bill, some light touches of interest. One, the Red Stripe clone uses some 6-row. The Mexican lager used a bit of Vienna. And then probably an adjunct, but you don't have to. And then a low to maybe medium presence of hops. And there you go. Simple beer that apparently everybody likes.
No, that's I mean, we've had 8 of them, and they're all really good.
We've had part of 8 of them.
We've had a little bit of 8 of them.
Yes. We'll finish the rest of them throughout the day.
We will, don't you worry. We will not. No beers left behind.
All right.
Don't worry.
Any final words on this, Ryan?
No, I think this was fun. I think
it was a lot of fun. I like all these beers.
Exactly, from so many different parts of the world, like China to Italy to Costa Rica to Netherlands to Jamaica to Mexico to Greece and back to and all the way back to
Japan,
and Italy. I think I got everyone now.
I think you did.
And
we didn't even cover. So I almost bought, but we already had too many. A Brazilian one I just found at a local store. There are some famous Polish lagers, Zwajek, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing wrong because Polish is weird.
Yeah,
but that's kind of a famously exported one. Stella, you talked about how do we leave off Stella?
We did forget
Belgium?
Stella, and Stella actually won an award for that beer for being an international lager.
Yeah, so Stella's a really excellent beer. So yeah, but check these out. It's interesting. Buy 3 of them. They're all in the same boat. They're all similar, but they're all different.
Yeah,
very very cool style. And I will be having this on the beach and at restaurants for many years to come,
and the pool possibly later on today.
We are going to finish all of these mostly finished bottles later. And until then...
Yeah. Hold on. We got to finish up. Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Rookie mistake.
You can find me...
Yeah, where can they find you, Michael?
At the podcast. Brewthers-In-Law, at Brewthers-In-Law, all one word, BREWTHERS, in-law, on Twitter. Also, brewthers-in-law.com, same spelling. We would be happy to hear from you at either place if you have comments about this episode or any other episode or general life advice
on beer
or your favorite international pale lager. Ryan, where else can everybody find you if they want more brewing content from you?
For brewing content, I do have something on Twitter called Wise Old Owls Brew. I do have a personal account, which is Rambo Kuhn. And then I also am on TikTok where I take videos of me brewing. And that's Wise Old Owl Brewer as well. Make sure you can leave a comment on any of those sites. I'd be glad to talk and communicate with you guys. And also make sure to reach out to wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google, YouTube, or any other site. Make sure you do rate us and leave a comment there. That helps the algorithms to help others find us so we can expand and have more listeners. Always like having more listeners.
Yay.
But until then, Mike, I think we're done. Cheers.
That was a lot of beer.
That was a lot of beer.